Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sego ani buju wacheya kwekwe. As the mayor of the city of Kingston, I offer these words in the spirit of this gathering. Let us bring our good minds and hearts together as one to honor and celebrate these traditional lands as the gathering place of the original peoples and their ancestors who were entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. It is with deep humility that we acknowledge and offer our gratitude for their contributions to this community, having respect for all as we share this space now and walk side by side into the future. We were just meeting in Committee of the Whole closed meeting. We discussed a number of items this evening, including Miles Square, land acquisition or disposition related to the K&P Trail, 305 to 323 Rideau Street, and litigation or potential litigation related to 663 Princess Street. So with that, I will ask for a motion to rise from Committee of the Whole closed meeting without reporting.
Moved by Councillor Osanek, second by Councillor Candon, that Council rise from the Committee of the Whole closed meeting without reporting.
So we have had some technical challenges with our voting system tonight, so we are going to go retro. And if everyone remembers how to do that, you'll have to raise your hand for yes or for no. So all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Wonderful. Next we have the approval of the addends.
Quick point of order, if I might.
Councilor Neal?
So we should, so if anybody desires a recorded vote on any issue, we can request that.
Yeah, so we will revert back to the way council used to operate. For those of you that were on the previous council, you remember this. We will do hand votes. If you would like a recorded vote, you can simply ask for one, and then the clerk will poll, and then we'll know exactly who voted yes or no. Otherwise, we'll just do a straight hand vote, and unless it's close, then we'll just know that it's carried or lost. Okay, so with that, we do have, I'll ask for an approval of the add-ins. We do have a motion of condolence, an amendment to an item on report number 8, and the addition of a couple of reports from the Arts, Recreation, Community Policies Committee and the Administrative Policies Committee. So with that, can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Allen. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Are there any disclosures of potential pecuniary interest? Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I, Councillor Rob Hutchison of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter report number 14 received from the Committee of the Whole, specifically Clause 3, paragraphs 2 and 8 in Bylaw 16, which are the budget. As my employer, Kingston and Cooperative Homes, Inc., participates in the city's affordable housing program, and my spouse's employer provides a literacy program to Ontario Works, respectively.
Thank you. Councillor George.
Thank you, Your Worship. I, Kevin George of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter of Clause 1, report number 10, as my business partner has been in discussions with the applicant.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I, Councillor Ryan Bowman of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter of report number 14, clause 1, 2, and 3, paragraph 8, and bylaws 15 and 16. As an employee of Utilities Kingston, it may be received that I have a pecuniary interest.
Thank you. And Councillor Osanek.
I, Lisa Osanek of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter of motion number 2, as the resolution calls upon the Minister of Health, and I am employed by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other declarations of pecuniary interest, we have no presentations this evening, but we do have 3 delegations. So first we will invite Martin Sherris, Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Kingston Chamber of Commerce, who will appear before Council to speak to report number 14, received from the Committee of the Whole with respect to approval of the municipal operating and capital budgets airport expansion. And just a reminder to all of our delegations that you have 5 minutes. Mr. Sherris.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak tonight. Again, my name is Martin Sherris. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Kingston Chamber of Commerce. And as the voice of business in Kingston, we polled our members again last week to assess how they feel about the airport expansion. The first question was, how important to you is the airport enhancement or expansion? 90% of our respondents said it was important. Number two, will an expanded airport boost economic development in the city? 92% either strongly agreed or agreed. And question number three, an expanded airport will create an important first impression to business travelers, tourists, and their visitors that Kingston is a modern, growing, smart, and livable city. 91% felt that is true. We routinely do this because we speak for our membership and do not want to assume what they would want us to say, so that we ask that question first, as we did about a year ago. I'm here tonight to talk about the business side of airport expansion from the information that we've achieved and some information as we're putting a white paper together on this very topic. We feel that economic development is an important part of what we want to do and what we think the Kingston can achieve in the next, I would say, 5 to 10 years. Air travel not only connects people, but it connects economies. The airport development has also been linked with economic development. When I say the airport, I mean airports in general. In 2013, LPS Sevilla Consulting published a detailed report, Business Case for Expansion. The prevailing opinion is that Kingston, and I quote, should consider modest improvements in airport infrastructure, including a runway extension to 6,000 feet. There also remains the situation of the built areas of the current municipal airport in Kingston and the need to take action. And I quote again, the Kingston Air Terminal building is now poorly configured due to incremental changes over several years. The building requires significant internal alterations and minor expansion to be suitable for handling newer, more fuel-efficient aircraft types now entering service in the aircraft fleet. I looked for some local or semi-local airports that we could use an example in this, and we decided to take a look at Peterborough for an example. Peterborough has a similar population to Kingston, slightly smaller. Their CMA, or Census Metropolitan Area, is 135,000. Kingston's CMA, or Census Metropolitan Area, is 169,000. The city itself is 87,000 in Peterborough, and we advertise our city at 123,000. LPS Sevilla, the same company, was commissioned in 2008 by the city of Peterborough to develop a business case for the infrastructure development at the Peterborough Airport, an airport at that time similar to Kingston's. In 2009, about 7 months later, the airport master plan was approved by council, paving the way for their growth and related economic impact. They realized the vital role that their airport plays in regional economic development. Today being within the last year, the airport has approximately a dozen associated aviation businesses surrounding the airport. Leading the way is Flying Colors Corporation, a world-class aviation refit, rebuild, maintenance, and aviation painting company providing service literally to global clients. Accordingly, Peterborough Region has a vibrant, expanding aerospace and aviation sector in their aerospace park. It provides a strategic advantage for business interests in expanding or relocating in Peterborough. There's also a potential for federal assistance. To engage new carriers and newer aircraft, Kingston's in the need of avionic upgrades. I don't profess to be an expert in this, so I'm reading what I have from what I looked up. This equipment will virtually land the aircraft in inclement weather or poor visibility. In Kingston, we seem to get a lot of fog days. This equipment is a NAV Canada responsibility. However, from people I've talked to and items we've looked at, there's more likely support for the cost of this installation on an expanded runway than on a runway of a current size. What does the future hold? Well, this is what we feel. Earlier this year, I attended the Imagine Kingston Summit 2025, a visioning session attended by over 50 leaders representing a cross-section of Kingston's public and private sector. The day-long event was an imaging session on what Kingston will look like in 2025 and what we need to do to get there. We had several ideas we bandied around and several ideas that were decided as important things that we needed to do. The consensus was that airport expansion, including runway extension and facility improvement, was one of the top 2 priorities to build a strong, vibrant economy.
30 seconds.
Many other groups in the area have reached the same conclusion. A recent article in the Whig Standard by William Leggett, Principal Emeritus, Queen's University, covers the lost business potential in the past, the present, and the future by doing nothing. I propose to you, all of these experts cannot be wrong. Let's ask ourselves this. If we don't improve our airport infrastructure, as you all agreed to earlier this year, then we should not only ask what new businesses will not come to Kingston, but which ones that are here now may leave. Thank you.
Thank you. 5 minutes on the dot. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. In taking a look at your survey and your survey responses, how many members do you have in your membership, and how many respondents was that 91% representative of?
Through you, Your Worship, that's a fair question. We routinely get 10 to 20% in that range. We have 840 members. However, there's only 700 unique members, as some own several businesses or branches. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we had 127 responses in that survey, which is at the high end of typical. Okay.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, and through you, thank you for your presentation this evening. Did you look at any other airports besides Peterborough, like Watertown, and how that might influence Kingston?
Through you, Your Worship, I did. I know I only had 5 minutes, so I had to condense it. We looked at several. The one we really looked at was Kelowna, BC, and I know that's far away, but their population is 110,000. They're situated between Vancouver and Calgary, much like we're situated perhaps between Toronto and Montreal. Their airport offers international service, and we really feel that that's the way it will go eventually. If we could, cross-border, that would really lead our business and our residents to hubs. They fly to Los Angeles every week. They fly to Chicago and Seattle out of an airport that's not much different or bigger in size than ours. Obviously, it would be a reach to think that we could do that tomorrow, but I think it would be the first step in that happening, and I think that would be the long-term goal.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second delegation this evening is Tara Kainer and Susan Belea, Sisters of Providence of St. Vincent de Paul, who will appear before council to speak to new motion number 2 with respect to the basic income guarantee.
Sorry. I'm a little bit shorter than our previous guest. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Susan Bellier, and I'm currently studying food security as a PhD candidate at Queen's University. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present this delegation on food insecurity and basic income with Tara Kainer from the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Office of the Sisters of Providence. So what is food security, and why does it matter in Kingston? According to Health Canada, food insecurity exists when one or more members of a household do not have access to the quantity or variety of food they require, and this is most commonly due to lack of money. Food security has been high on the agenda in Kingston. In the Strategic Priorities document of June 2015, the city identified increasing food security as one key element for creating a livable city. The city is represented on the Food Policy Council for KFLNA, and food security also figures in the Sustainability Plan. Further, the city supports several charitable agencies in their food security programming through funds granted through the Community Investment Fund. So why does food security matter in Kingston? Well, quite simply, people who live in poverty cannot afford to eat well, and this has long-term adverse mental and physical health effects. Poor nutrition in childhood has effects that can last a lifetime. In 2013, 1 in 5 children in Ontario lived in families affected by food insecurity, with detrimental effects on their physical health as well as on educational outcomes. The 2014 KFLNA Public Health Report, The Cost of Eating Healthy, surveys prices at grocery stores across the region in order to calculate the cost of a healthy diet relative to income. This report indicates that a family of 4 must spend $846 every month in order to eat well. The report shows clearly that the choice between paying rent, Paying for utilities and eating is real for many, especially for those raising a family on minimum wage or living on Ontario Works or on Ontario Disability Support payments. So how do we address food security in Kingston? Food banks, pantries, and other emergency meal programs are plentiful in this city. The second annual report of the Kingston Food Providers, a coalition of agencies providing meals and groceries to those in need, includes data from 27 food providers and indicates that in 2014, demand for their services increased over the previous year. Data from a one-day count of food assistance in Kingston conducted in the spring of 2015 again shows an increase in meals served and food bank hampers distributed throughout the city. This research shows that apart from the free meals provided in schools, 1,278 free or low-cost meals were served on one average day in 2015, and approximately 10% of those were served to children and youth. And when we do add in school breakfasts and lunch programs provided by the Food Sharing Project, that number jumps to 4,968 meals served in one day. In addition to food banks and hot meal programs, our research finds that more and more organizations that are not intended to be food providers find themselves needing to feed their hungry clients who come to them for other resources and services. Even with an abundance of emergency food programs, low-income Kingston residents remain food insecure. In fact, national surveys suggest that less than 1 out of 4 of those who are food insecure actually go to food banks or eat in meal programs. There are many reasons for this. People may not want to eat the food provided, or they may be reluctant to accept charity. Sometimes geographical distance is a factor. Partners in Mission Food Bank, for example, the largest food bank in Kingston, is located in an industrial area that is still poorly serviced by public transit. Many who rely on emergency food programs report spending their entire day walking from one to the other to get the 2 or 3 meals they need. Living with poverty and food insecurity in Kingston is a reality for many. People use multiple strategies to manage, but despite the hard work of impoverished families and of the food providers who strive to meet their needs, the existing system fails to actually solve the issue of poverty that leads to food insecurity.
30 seconds.
System isn't working. Thank you. Without addressing the income available to all, Kingston will not be able to fulfill its goal of eliminating food insecurity in our city. As food insecurity is directly linked to income, we support a basic income guarantee that ensures that everyone would receive an income sufficient to meet basic needs and to live with dignity regardless of work status. Basic income as a means to end poverty and food insecurity, improve health, and save tax dollars is an idea gathering momentum. We urge you to pass the motion before City Council tonight and support a basic income. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor Neal.
Yes, just quickly, thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Would it be possible for you to forward your slides to the clerk's department so they can forward them to mayor and council?
Yes, no problem at all. There is a handout that I had provided as well that has most of that data, but sure, I'm happy
That would be
to
great.
forward the
Thank you very
presentation.
much.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, the snapshot that you gave of the effects, the sort of trajectory that we were seeing from 2013 to 2015, and the information provided on the impacts, I guess. I'm thinking about what the longer term impacts are and whether you've looked at any data that indicates that there are specific health and educational outcomes that are related to food insecurity that would sustain intergenerational poverty, that sort of thing.
Sure, there most definitely are. There isn't research done specific to Kingston on this, but there is at the provincial level and certainly federally. Anecdotally, in Kingston, I know that Pathways to Education finds that they need to feed their students in order to be able to provide the programming they need. That's a good example of an agency that wasn't set up to feed people, but that actually has to feed their clients, their participants, in order to function. Tara, do you want to speak to the health effects? You know.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt that there are health effects through poor nutrition, and especially when children are young, those effects will last a lifetime. So people never recover from that kind of deprivation in childhood. There is lots of research out there that supports that.
In the handout that you have, there are some references to diet-related illnesses and depression, mental health issues, and much lower educational outcomes for children who live in poverty and experience food insecurity.
Councillor Hutchison.
I wondered if you could comment on the relationship of food insecurity, affordable housing, and the success of students in school as it relates to, I'm thinking about the context of our projected skilled labor force shortfalls that we're looking at by 2021. I wonder if you've done anything that relates those factors.
Well, we can't, though my research does deal specifically with food insecurity, and that's what I'm presenting on tonight, when we're looking at poverty, we can't separate really the importance of affordable housing, adequate housing, and food insecurity, and access to skills training and the educational trajectory that would allow you to fill the gaps that we see in the labor force.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I heard you mention that the bus doesn't go to the food outlet and
The food bank, no.
the food bank, and if it doesn't, does it go nearby? Or if you could give me some information on that, I'd appreciate it.
I don't know if you've been to the food bank. The bus travels on Montreal Street and stops more or less at the base, close to the base of the street, Hickson Avenue, that the food bank's on. But it's nearly a kilometer. It's like 0.8 of a kilometer, which doesn't seem that much, but there's no sidewalks on that street either. And if you, for example, are pushing a stroller and then trying to come back with 40 or 50 pounds of canned goods in bags, it's a difficult trek. And that's been an issue that's been discussed through several iterations of council here in Kingston.
Okay, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I just noticed in your little handout there's a quote from Drs. Martin and Miele talking about how it is, and I quote, is an approach to poverty reduction that is much simpler and more streamlined than existing programs. Could you just expand, tell us in what way would it be simpler? And also, my other question would be, how would it compare to existing programs? I'm talking about the basic income guarantee now, regarding the stigmatization that occurs with the applying to the existing programs.
Thank you for that question. I'm respectfully going to ask that there's another delegation on basic income, which includes an economist who can speak more articulately to that particular piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our third delegation this evening is Pamela Cornell and Robin Bodway, Kingston Action Group, who will appear before council to speak to new motion number 2 with respect to the basic income guarantee.
Okay, here's a quickie version of the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the basic income guarantee. We'll begin with what the basic income guarantee is. Not to be confused with a living wage, a basic income guarantee ensures that everyone, regardless of their employment situation, has enough money to meet their basic needs for food, shelter, utilities, clothing, and transportation. It already exists for seniors, as old age security and the guaranteed income supplement, and for families with children, there are monthly checks. Now the who, and there are 2 who's. Who would benefit directly from the basic income guarantee, and who are some of its most ardent and influential proponents? Let's begin with the beneficiaries. Those most urgently in need are the estimated 20,000 Kingstonians living in poverty. Some are on social assistance or a disability pension. Others are underemployed or working for minimum wage. Our economic reality is changing. Employers used to offer decent wages, health insurance, paid vacations, and defined benefit pensions. Now jobs like that are in decline. The Uberization of the workforce, where workers are paid by the task, is increasing the precariousness of work. Even people with PhDs face an uncertain future, cobbling together sessional lectureships or consulting contracts. Add in the effects of robotics, artificial intelligence, and globalization, and it's time to rethink the idea of paid labor as the requirement for survival. A basic income guarantee would give people income security between periods of employment. It would help anyone needing to take time away from work to care for others, be they young children, an ailing spouse, or an elderly parent. It would give entrepreneurs and artists a basic level of security while they develop not just their projects, products, and creations, but also the networks and markets to sustain their enterprise. Who are some of the basic income's advocates? Retired Senator Hugh Segal has been championing the cause for decades and has recently found allies in Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi, Edmonton Mayor Don Iveson, Alberta Finance Minister Joe Ceci, and all the provincial party leaders in Prince Edward Island. This past summer, the Canadian Medical Association and the Association of Local Public Health Agencies endorsed the Basic Income Guarantee, and 192 doctors signed a letter to Ontario's health minister calling for a pilot project. Why are healthcare professionals on board? Because income level is the #1 determinant of health. Poverty wreaks havoc on bodies. A recent study in the Niagara region showed that if healthcare expenditures lost a page. Oh. There. Consumed by the poorest, 20% could be lowered to the level of the second lowest 20%. There would be a savings of $94 million a year. And that's just going from one level, the lowest level, to the next level up. Researcher Evelyn Forger's findings from the MinCome project, conducted in Dauphin, Manitoba between 1974 and 79, showed that doctor and hospital visits declined, mental health appeared to improve, more teenagers completed high school, and there was less crime, resulting in reduced demands on police and court services. Children are the biggest beneficiaries of income security. 20 years ago, researchers began tracking the personalities of 1,420 low-income children in North Carolina. 4 years into that study, about a quarter of those children's families saw a dramatic increase in annual income. They were members of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation, and a new casino on the reserve was paying every tribal citizen a share of the profits, about $4,000 a year, boosting household incomes by almost 20%. Here's how that money altered those children's lives. Their parents drank less and fought less. A more harmonious family environment reduced emotional and behavioral disorders among the children and boosted 2 key personality traits that make for a brighter future: conscientiousness and agreeableness. Now to the when and where.
30 seconds.
The Federal Liberal Party endorsed a basic income guarantee at its 2014 policy convention, and Hugh Segal thinks an initiative might be announced in time for Canada's sesquicentennial in 2017. Back in 1966, the Canadian government brought in national health care, which proved to be an enduring legacy. 50 years later, it's time to introduce another transformative policy, the Basic Income Guarantee. Want to know how we'd implement and pay for it? Just ask public finance economist Robin Bodway.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry about the page shuffle.
Okay, Councillor Bohm.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So just a quick question. In your opinion, would a basic income guarantee basically act as an economic stimulator and as well as increase the physical health of society, which I believe you already alluded to, which could essentially help to deal with the problem of healthcare slowly becoming as our #1 expenditure as provincially? So can it help to deal with those issues?
Well, it's not the basic purpose of basic income to create an economic stimulus. Nonetheless, by putting money in the hands of the lowest income people, who are bound to spend it, there's no doubt there would be some economic stimulus, especially locally. But I think the bigger benefits have to do with the benefits that would accrue to the poor people themselves as they're drawn out of poverty. You mentioned improvements in health outcomes, improvements in education outcomes, improvements in social outcomes, social behavior, improvements in nutrition. These things would all benefit the people who would be the recipients of basic income, and I think they would also benefit the communities that are sort of ground zero for poverty in our society.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm simply going to ask the same question I asked the previous presenters. How is the basic income guarantee simpler than the existing social programs from the point of view of the recipient, I guess? And how would basic income guarantee compare to the existing programs with regards to the stigmatization that exists with the current programs?
Thank you for that question, which is a key question. What's wrong with the existing system? The current system that deals with people who are in poverty is the welfare system and the system of disability support. And I think it's inadequate for 3 or 4 reasons. One is because the amounts payable are well below the poverty line. Another one is because the incentives to work are bad in both of these programs. And the third one, as you mentioned, is that there's a tremendous amount of stigmatization associated with being a recipient of welfare, associated with the conditions that are attached, work conditions, asset conditions, reporting conditions, and so on. The benefit of a basic income is that it would be automatically given to people regardless of their status and would be conditioned on their taxable income, which is monitored through the tax system. So there would be really a minimum of stigmatization associated with it.
Councillor Neal.
Yes. Speaking on, I'll take Pamela Cornell's question and ask the good doctor, how will this program be able to be sustainably funded?
That's the $64,000 question, of course. I come at this as an economist, and my view is that it would be affordable. And the cost of the program would depend upon the parameters. How big is the guarantee, which I think most proponents would argue should be somewhere around the poverty line. But also, how rapid is the clawback to people who don't need it? And if you combine those two things, I think you can get an affordable program by replacing existing transfers to the poor, essentially welfare, disability support, guaranteed income supplement, with the basic income, and also changing the system of, I don't want to get too technical here, but changing the system of tax credits that go through the income tax system. Some of you may know that some tax credits are now refundable based on your income, such as the Canada Child Tax Benefit, Working Income Tax Benefit, GST benefit, and so on. And these would be the model for the way in which the system would work. We could take existing credits that exist in the system that are not refundable, like the personal exemption, the spousal exemption, the dependence exemption, the age exemption, and so on, and make them refundable, but also make them conditional on income. And you could draw a fair amount of money in that way, which would support the people at the very bottom. Now, it would be a myth to say that it can be paid without money coming from somewhere, but I think it could be paid in a way that is fair to everybody by making the system of the income tax system fairer.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Okay, we have no briefings this evening. We do have a petition. An e-petition bearing approximately 222 signatures was received by the Planning Committee on December 3rd, 2015, and received in the City's Clerk Department on December 7th, 2015, and reads as follows. We, the undersigned, agree with the following statements. New developments in Kingston's downtown core ought to fit into its architectural character and human scale. More specifically, in view of needed densification, there should only be moderate increases in height allowances, which are presently at 4 and 6 stories for buildings on Lower Princess and Lower Queen Streets, i.e. east of Division Street. The maximum height ought to be spelled out and respected We propose 6 to 8-story maximum in principle, though perhaps 8 to 10 stories max could be approved if a proper 3D model shows convincingly how it fits into the existing downtown. We must ensure that new structures will be aesthetically compatible with existing ones, which is important for our enjoyment of our city, for tourists, and for future downtown residents. In short, we hope that all current and future downtown development proposals will be carefully tailored for their respective sites. This includes areas such as the old Empire Theater, the North Block, the site across the old police station, and the old Blockbuster video site. That's referred to council. Are there any other petitions to present? Okay, seeing none, we do have one motion of condolence, moved by Mayor Patterson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stroud, that the condolences of Kingston City Council be extended to the family of retired Brigadier General Don Banks, who passed away on December 4th, 2015. Don had a very distinguished career in the Canadian Army, including his service as the base commander of CFB Kingston from 1987 to 1990. He is remembered fondly for his active participation in the Kingston community through both military and civilian contributions. Don will be greatly missed, and our thoughts are with his family during this difficult time. We will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We have no deferred motions, so we will move on to reports. First, report number 8 from the CAO.
Moved by Councillor Boehm, second by Councillor George, that report number 8 from the Chief Administrative Officer consent be received and adopted.
So there are a number of items, A through P. Would anyone like any items separated? Councillor Neal.
N and P.
N and P. Councillor Schell.
Thank you. Item D, item I, and item K, please.
Okay, so we have separated. Are there any other separations? Right now we've separated item D, I, K, N, and P. So first we will vote on the balance. Item A is a proposed amendment to Kingston BMX Association license agreement. Item B is the Community Investment Fund 2015 recommendations. Item C is award of contract for consulting services, workforce in-migration strategy. Item E, award of contract 7 all-wheel drive compact sport utility vehicles. Item F, consent to assignment of contract, wireless backhaul agreement. Item G, parking bylaw amendments, Napier Street area follow-up. Item H, appointment of municipal bylaw enforcement officer, Homestead Land Holdings Limited. Item J, declare surplus and dispose of a portion of stormwater pond lands lying south of Cataraqui Woods Drive for the sale to Union Gas Limited for a new regulator station. Item L, Highway 15 ambulance station, termination of land lease with Hotel Dieu and new lease with County of Frontenac. Item M, council support of a conditional grant agreement from the Eastern Ontario Development Fund. And item O, bylaw update housekeeping local improvement policy. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, item D, community visioning exercise, Portsmouth Olympic Harbor, and federal properties. Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I'm really pleased to see this move forward, and I did check with staff that the cost is $50,000, which is a $30,000 already approved budget for the visioning of the harbor that we passed about 2 years ago, plus another 20. So I'm really, really pleased that this is moving forward, but I would like to ask staff to clarify the part about the municipal heritage designation of the Kingston Penitentiary. Normally, we would designate something municipally well before it's sold or just before it's sold to make sure that it's protected. So could I just get staff to sort of explain what the hold means, and does it affect the plan to have a municipal designation before the sale?
Commissioner Hurdle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent here is to put a hold on the designation while the community visioning exercise is actually being completed. To answer the question, there will be a municipal heritage bylaw that will be passed before the property is disposed. So that's still the plan and the intent of the process. But what we wanted to make sure is that with a designation, obviously, it does identify a number of limitations in terms of the site, but we wanted to make sure the public had the chance to really do a visioning without necessarily looking at all of those details at this point, but look at the bigger picture and what the public would like to see on this site. And we'll gather that information with a lot of the work that's already been done in terms of the designation bylaw, as well as information that we've received from the federal government. So we will be bringing something back to the Municipal Heritage Committee before the property is disposed.
Thank you. That's very reassuring.
Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Commissioner Hurdle, for your answer. Just further to that same clause about the municipal heritage designation, what would happen if the visioning exercise revealed uses of the site that might be in conflict with what was sort of already in the municipal heritage designation bylaw that's already been developed but hasn't been passed yet? What would happen in that situation?
Commissioner Hurdle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the things that we will do in terms of the visioning exercise will be to not only have a consultant with land use expertise, but also with heritage expertise. So that will be helpful in terms of looking at how we can make sure that the two actually come together. There may be things that we may be bringing back to the committee that may be slightly different than what the committee has already seen, because it is currently in a draft format. And that's exactly the intent, to be able to bring these two initiatives together to have a final product that the public has been involved with fully, not just, and I appreciate the Municipal Heritage Committee, but also have the public input as part of that.
Just a quick follow-up. What would you say to members of the community that are already involved with heritage preservation and may be worried about the wording of this recommendation, that it seems to suggest that the municipal heritage designation is somehow a detriment to the visioning exercise? What would you say to them?
Commissioner Hurdle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that the intent here is just to put a hold on anything that would make decisions in terms of the future development of the property. So bringing forward a designation bylaw right now would obviously make decisions around what we anticipate may or may not be developed. So the community at large that may want to have a say would probably feel that they're not really having a real say, because decisions have already been made in terms of how the site and all the constraints that may be on the site. So we wanted to make sure that we provided the public with the opportunity to look at this site. We understand that there is a federal designation currently, and there will be a municipal designation, and we understand that it will go through the Municipal Heritage Committee. So that process is not going away. It's still going to be maintained in the same fashion, but what we're adding is a public component, which otherwise would not have been present.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Deputy Mayor Stroud, do you have additional comments?
I'm wondering if it's possible to separate that clause when we vote on item D, the second clause.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Stroud has asked that the second paragraph of the clause of item D be separated. Okay. Deputy Mayor Stroud, will you take the chair?
I take the chair, and I recognize you. Go ahead, Your Worship.
Thank you. I appreciate the concern, but I think that it's important to understand the importance of a big picture view of not only Kingston Penitentiary, but also the neighboring Portsmouth Olympic Harbor. So this is a first opportunity for a big picture view of what this entire area could look like, and it's also going to provide input for everybody in the community. And I'm not sure about all of you, but I know that this was probably the issue that I heard the most about going door to door in the last election. People in this community want to know what's going to happen with KP. And it's a good news story in that even though this is a federal property, that the government is choosing to partner with the city in this visioning to give everybody in the community the chance to be able to provide that input. And so I think the rationale to delaying any designation on this property is to provide opportunity for that input. I think it's clear that we're going to want to explore a variety of different uses, a variety of different opportunities on this site. There's no doubt in my mind that there are a number of things that will need to be protected, and I think that we will hear that from the community. So we'll also be able to have input on tourism opportunities and other sorts of redevelopment ideas. But I think that this is absolutely a critical first step, that first we allow the entire community to speak, put forward their ideas, and then out of that visioning, that will inform next steps. So I certainly would encourage council to support all of these items in this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you. You may have the chair back.
Thank you. So we will call the vote. First, we will call the vote on paragraphs 1 and 3. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Now we will call the vote on paragraph 2. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries by a vote of 12-1. Okay, on to item I. Item I is update implementation of the Integrated Cultural Heritage and Cultural Tourism Strategy. Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I'm very pleased again to see this one because I know cultural heritage has been sort of off to the side and now is becoming much more in the forward thinking. It's to do with Tourism Kingston being generally the lead in tourism, and does staff see this as part of a move toward a true integrated tourism package that will include the idea of sports tourism, cultural tourism, so that we don't wind up with silos in that sense?
Who wants to take that? I see fingers pointing in various different directions here. Okay, Mr. Wiggins.
Through you, Your Worship, I think one of the great outcomes of the process that was initiated through the work we were doing on this integrated strategy is bringing all the different players together. And you had the opportunity earlier this fall to hear Murray Matheson from Kingston Accommodation Partners talk about the one voice approach. And so certainly Tourism Kingston is on board for that and wants to see there be an opportunity under the notion of a destination marketing strategy to have that as a benefit to then go forward and do the work that they do around travel trade, convention, sport, as well as leisure tourism. So I can't necessarily speak on behalf of them, but I know that they're certainly on board with this initiative to be part of an integrated approach going forward.
Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for that answer. I am wholeheartedly supportive of this recommendation, and I think that the price tag is on this is very small, very high value for money for what I see the effect of this having, and I encourage the work that staff's done so far and look forward to the further updates. Thank you.
Okay, we will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Next, item K, renewal of the service level agreement between the City of Kingston and the Kingston Association of Museums, Art Galleries, and Historic Sites, CAM, and approval of the project and operating grant recommendations for the 2016 City of Kingston Heritage Fund. Councillor Schell.
I have a lot tonight. Thank you. I was on the project grant portion of the Heritage Fund, and I'd just like to say thank you and congratulate CAM for the work that they're doing, and so pleased that the City of Kingston is now supporting this. As we've often mentioned, we didn't have this 5 years ago, and as the progression continues. It's really good to see how well the programs are working. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Item N is the preliminary design for the third crossing of the Cataraqui River award of contract. I'm just going to make this comment now that this is not the place for a debate on whether or not we're going to build a third crossing. Just to remind Council, we've directed staff to proceed with the preliminary design, so this item is just dealing with who would be awarded that contract. So please try to keep your comments confined to the item that's at hand. Councillor Kendon.
Thank you. Through your worship, I guess I was going to point out at the start that I strongly support the third crossing, despite my laundry list of questions that I may have. It said in the report that all of the firms that applied were reputable firms. Did we come to that conclusion before the RFP or during the RFP?
Mr. Van Buren.
The notion that these are all reputable firms would be based on, I guess, a long-standing knowledge of the capabilities of these firms. So that would have been a conclusion that would have been drawn before we would have commenced any evaluation of the proposals.
Okay. I guess my response to that is I feel that if we know beforehand that we're dealing with 5 very good companies, it wouldn't be a bad idea to put a higher emphasis on the financial aspects or the financial proposal, because 25% may be a little bit too small. If we know all the companies we're working with are very good, then it might make sense to go with the most competitive price. It's just my personal opinion on this one in general and moving forward with any RFP that we do. I believe the price that we had was $2.9 million allocated towards this process, and everybody seemed to come in a bit under. Where did we come up with the 2.9 million, and how do we know that was an accurate estimate?
Mr. Van Buren.
Through your worship, maybe just a comment on the earlier piece. I think there is a difference between reputable companies and those that are the best qualified, and that's what this request for proposal was seeking, was the best qualified team to bring to this particular preliminary design effort. So I think there is a distinction between reputable engineering firms and those that were best qualified for this particular assignment. As it relates to the budget estimate, when we had put this together in the information or the recommended report that we brought to council back in September, we had developed a budget estimate for the preliminary design, which was actually $2.6 million. And that was based on some industry norms where we were looking at typically a percentage of the overall construction value in terms of what that would translate into in terms of an estimate or a target for what the engineering fees would be. So those are drawn on industry norms.
And it said that MMM Group was brought in, I think there was a 30-minute review. Was it brought up that they were a staggering amount lower than what we had typically anticipated? And did they have any reasonable response as to why their price was so low compared to what we had anticipated it was?
Through your worship, when we undertook the actual interviews with 3 of the firms that had provided proposals, that was an opportunity to seek clarification on the information they had provided in those proposals. It was not necessarily to ask some questions as it related particular to the financial proposals that they submitted, but it was certainly an opportunity for us to understand whether or not there was a sufficient level of resources, how those resources were going to be applied to what we considered to be key aspects of this project to actually complete the preliminary design.
Well, I guess I may as well cut to the chase. My ultimate question is, for the extra $1 million, are we getting, what exactly are we getting that is better? If you could be specific on that, because there was one point in the report that said that there was extra information or hours allocated to something that may come up in phase 2. Do you know how much that was that may be allocated to phase 2, and what exactly are we getting if we're going to be writing a much larger check to this specific company?
Again, through you, Mayor Patterson, a couple of comments. One is that the notion that we tried to minimize the price component and setting that at 25%. Actually, we take a little bit of a different view. And in fact, the real question is, why was it important to value the non-financial components as high as we did? And again, some of the very, I think, important things with this project for council to keep in mind is that it is a very significant project. Probably one of the most significant design projects that the city will possibly undertake. Number 2 is that it's a very complex project. So we are dealing with an environment here where we're trying to design geotechnical conditions where bedrock is 35 meters below the water surface elevation, overlain by a variety of silts and clays. So we're trying to really understand the geotechnical conditions in this particular setting. The negotiations and the consensus building with a whole lot of different project stakeholders is going to be complicated and an involved process. So those are going to be a variety of provincial and federal government agencies that we're going to have to deal with, including Parks Canada and also some of the First Nations that we're also going to have to build some consensus with. The last piece was, again, the work ahead here is really to position the city in the best possible way to advance the last and final phase, which is getting a very robust preliminary design that will situate the city in the best possible way so that we can make a decision whether or not we want to advance towards the final design and ultimate construction, or whether or not we choose to undertake some alternative procurement process. So to your question, where was the value in the J.L. Richards proposal? Again, when the review team that spent the better part of 3 days evaluating this stack of information looked at that, the J.L. Richards team was simply the best team that was offered. They have a whole host of experience. They have very relevant experience in terms of some project work that they've done in the Ottawa area on the Vimy Memorial Bridge. They provided the best work plan. So very involved geotechnical plan and certainly demonstrated value added here. They were proposing, in this case, approximately four times the level of effort of some of the other firms that had submitted information as it related to their geotechnical work plan. Again, an aspect of this project that's going to be extremely important that we understand the geotechnical environment here, and their work plan reflected that. The natural environment and the cultural environment. Again, I touched on those issues earlier, but from a cultural environment perspective, we're working in a UNESCO World Heritage designated area here. So the value that the J.L. Richards team is bringing is, again, a level of effort expressed in terms of time and resources that are going to be applied to making sure that we can step through those negotiations with those stakeholders, that it's going to be important to satisfy when it relates to protecting and preserving that UNESCO heritage designation. They provided the best value in considering some of the aspects of the natural environment. So when we talk about the natural environment, that's making sure that we're going to have adequate protection of the aquatic and terrestrial habitats in the area. It's going to be making sure that we have an adequate plan to protect for the possibilities that we're going to encounter contaminated sediments. And I guess the last thing I'll touch on again is the value added that they offered in terms of creativity and innovation. And that's expressed not just in the technical aspects of the design, but also innovation and creativity that's going to be applied in terms of how they're going to undertake those that consensus building with the stakeholders and how they're going to engage the public through the process.
Were you aware that MMM Group has designed a bridge that is 2 kilometers over the Rideau Canal and received the Canadian Institute of Planners Award for the design of excellence. When you made that decision, like they received the highest award I think that you can get for creating a 2-kilometer bridge over the Rideau Canal.
I can't recall whether or not that was one of the references that they had cited in their particular proposal. We can go back and check that. But again, I would suggest that there were lots of other projects that were cited from other teams that had submitted proposals, including the J.L. Richards team that cited lots of examples of significant bridge projects that they've been working on.
Okay. And have we worked with J.L. Richards in the past, and have we had a good standing record with them previously? Have they ever had any cost overruns with the City of Kingston?
Through your worship, the J.L. Richards Group was actually the lead consultant for the work that the city did on the environmental assessment for the third crossing. I would like to point out that one of the things that they did do there with their proposal was a little bit of a reformulation of their team that they're providing here for the preliminary design work, and that includes a partnership with Parsons Corporation. So to that end, they have brought team strength in terms of actual bridge design work, and again, some experience that Parsons brings to the table, most notably that work on the Vimy Memorial Bridge in Ottawa.
Thank you. I guess that was obviously a long list of questions. I felt that the report did lack a bit of content in order for me to ambitiously or get excited about supporting this recommendation, just because I feel like from a percentage-wise, it was almost half price the other bid, and obviously they're very reputable, and I could go on for days about the RFP process and different details about that, but I just felt that the report was lacking content for me to be incredibly excited about it. Obviously, I want to see the bridge go in. You know, if you give me a shovel right now, I'll start digging a footing myself, but and Ryan will help me, I'm sure. But I just felt that report was lacking information. And the reason why I wanted to speak first was I want everybody to kind of maybe prove me wrong as to why I should support it. I'm certainly open to any criticism that people may have for any questions that I've asked.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Strout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also have a couple of questions. I agree with Councillor Candon. The report is not doesn't give all the information that we might need in order to make a fully informed decision. We're talking about a lot of money here. I'm just going to ask a question now about the 30% on the RFP to creativity, innovation, and vision that I know has been referenced. I made a little pie graph of the of what was in the report of the various things, but you can instantly see that it's basically 4/4 of the pie, 1/4 of it being the financial the cost, and so obviously if you change the weighting and use the exact same data, the results under total score would be very very different. So I'm just wondering, creativity by itself. It's not in the report. It would have been very helpful to have actually all of the categories, all of the numbers for all of the categories. So for those councillors that might actually believe that certain like financial cost might be should be a higher weighting than 25, they would be able to see those numbers. Financial is on here and technical is on here, but the creativity numbers are not on here. So how did the just concentrate on J.L. Richards and MMM. How did they compare on that score?
Through your worship, the individual scores for each of the consultants on each of the individual evaluation criteria was not provided in this report. And that's trying to balance an element of making sure that there's openness and transparency, but also trying to be respectful of the fact that we have 5 firms here that have provided an awful lot of time and energy and effort into creating these proposals. And in all fairness to them, many of them are unaware of the scores and they haven't even had an opportunity for a debrief. So one of the things I think would be considerate would be to make sure that we at least offer that opportunity for the consultants to understand their own scores as opposed to having that being provided in a public setting. To your question as it relates to how did G.L. Richards perform on that particular component, G.L. Richards was actually received the highest scores on all of the non-financial components, save and except the accessibility considerations.
I'm only going to get to speak once, correct? I think it's important that we councillors do get some of that information. It doesn't need to be necessarily due to the sensitive nature in open session, but I'm not ready to make a decision, and I'd like to move deferral in order to go over some of those numbers from staff at a time that before we make the decision.
Okay, so a motion to defer has to have a time and a place attached to it. So
the reason I've stated, maybe I should elaborate, to obtain more information from staff about the ranking and scoring of the various proponents, the details that weren't in the report, and then the time would be at the
so to the next council
council meeting, yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to defer this item to the January the 12th council meeting in order to obtain more information related to the scoring on the RFP. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Schell. Any debate with respect to time or place? Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I just want to ask staff, does that timing close any windows as far as pursuing other levels of funding or anything? Is there anything that we're going to miss with that? I know it's just the next meeting, but I just wanted to be sure.
Mr. Van Buren.
Through you, Your Worship. The schedule that was contemplated in order to deliver the preliminary design along with the financial plan was to have that back to council within the next 18 months. We're probably already working on a very tight timeline, so I think any delay jeopardizes the overall schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we will call the vote on the motion to defer. So we have that in writing. Everyone's clear on what that motion is. Okay, so we will call the vote on the motion to defer. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries by a vote of 9-4. Okay, on to item P, an annual amendment to fees and charges bylaw 2005-10. Councillor Neal.
Yes, thank you. I was gave a heads up to staff regarding this, but I did have a couple of questions regarding this. I appreciate, first of all, I appreciate that that in support of open government and transparency, we're removing charges from data mapping. And so I really appreciate that that's a step forward in that direction. As I usually do at this time of every year, I ask for an explanation anytime a fee increase is greater than the cost of living or greater than 3%. Perhaps, and I did give a heads up to staff, perhaps you could address any of the ones that are most evidently above that, if you could.
Commissioner Hurdle.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I anticipated that question was probably related to a number of the fees and charges in my group. So there are a number of situations or areas where we're increasing a little bit more than the 3%. And at a high level or generally, some of them include cash handling, for example, where we rounded out numbers, so it's a little bit more than 3%, but it's just easier for cash handling. We also have, in some cases, some cost recovery. So with camps and fitness training, where we're making sure that we're recovering the cost of the program. Some of them that are, I think, a little bit specific and related to previously approved strategies or reports of council would include, for example, the soccer fields. So some years ago, and some councillors will remember that there was a strategy that was introduced and endorsed by council to make improvements to soccer fields in terms of the maintenance and also significant capital investments at that time. And the intent was to have an increase on a yearly basis that was much larger than 3% to be able to recover some of the costs related to the increased maintenance. We also have the spayed and neutered cats, which was part of a report that went to ARC in 2013, so that was approved by council. And we have Artillery Park for the pool rentals, so by groups that are renting the pool. And as I indicated during the budget presentation, that's to be more in line with the fees that are charged, for example, at the YMCA and other community pools. So those are the ones in at a high level in community services that are increasing by more than 3%, and the reason why.
Great, thank you. And if I could just make a request for future, when we get the chart, and we've asked outside agencies to do a similar thing, if you could have a 2014 fees line and a 2015 fees line, then it saves a retired drama teacher doing a whole lot of math in my head as to what a percentage of an increase actually equals. So, thank you.
Okay, so we will call the vote on item P. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, report number 9 from the CAO.
Moved by Councillor McLaren, second by Councillor Allen, that report number 9 from the Chief Administrative Officer recommend be received and adopted.
Okay, so first we have a briefing. Ian Semple, Manager, Service Development, Transportation Services, will provide a briefing with respect to Clause 1B, completion of the municipal class environmental assessment for the Kingston Transit Downtown Transfer Point. Mr. Semple.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I'm pleased to present an overview of the environmental assessment that was completed for the Downtown Transfer Point. The Downtown Transfer Point is located on Brock and Bagot Streets here in downtown Kingston. It's a very important part of the city's transit network, a major hub for the system. More than 600,000 riders board at this location each year, and 12 routes meet there, including all of the city's express routes. The Downtown Transfer Point has been at that location for a number of years, decades in fact, and there's a number of long-standing issues related to accessibility and operational efficiency that we were seeking to address. So on the slide that's shown on the screens, you'll see some of the current conditions that were found as part of this study. Certainly the waiting areas and the shelters that exist on site right now, along with the boarding areas, leave some concern related to accessibility and for the ease in which people can wait for their bus. There's noted conflicts with other vehicles that enter into the transfer point area, as well as some sidewalk and other conditions that contribute to the inaccessible nature of the site. So recognizing the importance of this site to the transit hub, the city initiated an environmental assessment in the spring of this year, looking to address these concerns and recognizing that the DTP should be a place that's safe, accessible, convenient, comfortable, and efficient. And recognizing that the site where it exists right now, there may be another location that should be looked at. The study area was expanded to some neighboring blocks around the current location, which you can see displayed on the slide. So with this study, public consultation was an important component. We spoke with a number of stakeholders, institutions in the city, business owners and property owners. We also spoke with our riders through interviews and pop-up workshops at the transfer point itself, public meetings, as well as a number of online surveys. And what we heard from the stakeholders and what we heard from our riders was a strong desire to keep the transfer point at its current location, or certainly very close to its current location. And second to that, a real recognition of the overall accessibility or inaccessibility of the site, especially for those who have mobility and sight issues. Riders also expressed a desire for some more comfortable places to wait, some more shelters, some more benches, and better information on where the buses would be coming and when they would be coming. So using that, using the information from our consultation along with technical analysis, the study area was refined to 3 options. The 3 options shown here include a base case, not completing anything at the transfer point, improving the transfer point in its current location, and looking at an alternate site. In this case, the site was Clarence Street between Bagot and Wellington, and converting that area to the new transfer point. In looking at a more detailed analysis of these options, we assessed the impact that these changes would have on our riders, on the downtown community, on the transit operation itself, as well as other transportation users, whether the changes would be feasible, the cost of those changes, and other environmental aspects that are considered as part of a study of this nature. And through that more detailed technical analysis, it was determined that the preferred option would be to keep the transfer point at its current locations, but invest in improvements that make the location more accessible and address some of the operational deficiencies that were found. And certainly this location was provided for the most accessible design once the improvements were completed, and provided the largest capacity and flexibility for transit operation, both currently and in the future. The Clarence Street option didn't allow for sufficient pedestrian and rider space once the bus bays were added to that street, and it had the largest impact on the neighboring residential areas, and had the greatest impact on how transit would move through the downtown and move through that area. So regardless of location, the study recommended a number of design elements that should be incorporated into the new transfer point, recognizing the desire for more shelters, those shelters to be more open, more accessible, to incorporate appropriate lighting, to have wider sidewalk space, or as wide a sidewalk space as possible, and to include a number of accessibility features into that sidewalk space to increase the accessibility for all users. It also recognized the operational issues that exist at the current site and a need to delineate the transfer point for other vehicles so that they know that this is a special place. So through that analysis, a conceptual design was created for the preferred option. The images that are shown here on the screen are for the Brock Street segment. The scope of work envisioned for this is the reconstruction of the sidewalks, the transit lane, and the roadway on Brock Street from Montreal Street to Bagot. The addition of bus bays and more visible travel lanes for the buses, along with additional shelters and a delineated boarding and waiting area for riders from the pedestrian areas along the street. The Bagot Street segment of the transfer point was recently reconstructed as part of the second phase of the Princess Street reconstruction, and the changes envisioned in the conceptual design focus on the passenger and waiting areas along the sidewalk, and in particular in the public spaces of the Lower Bruce parking garage. The study envisions reclaiming some of the parking garage space to provide more sheltered area, more seating, and a more accessible and amenable area for our riders to wait. It also looks at expanding the bus bays that exist on Bagot Street and converting the right turn lane on Bagot Street to a transit-only travel lane. The next steps with this project is to submit the report to the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change with the province, pending council approval. At this point, it'll be opened up for a 30-day review period, and when the province signs off on the completed study, the city can begin some detailed design work and cost refinement of the construction estimate that was included in this plan. Construction timing will be determined by working with our partners in Engineering and Utilities Kingston to determine the best point to reconstruct this based on that detailed design work and the detailed costing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you. I noticed on Bagot Street, beside the city parking lot, there's an alcove there that's currently right now a little, like on the left on that picture there. It's currently a little bit, blank and ugly. I'm wondering if there's anything that's going to be done there to make it more attractive, something that would be helpful to transit in that sense?
Yeah, so the changes you can see on the conceptual drawing that's shown on the screen. The design includes some facade work for the lower Robert Bruce garage, and it reclaims both the alcove space that you may have seen along there that exists on the north end of the garage, but it also reclaims one of the parking spaces in the garage to convert that into additional seating and covered area. If you look at that, speaking about the alcove specifically that exists right there now, it contains only a bench and some signage at this point. I think it would be, the expectation is that it would be enhanced with some lighting, additional seating, and additional features that make it a more amenable place to wait.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, there are so many things I love about this, including the signage that does seem to be one of the most significant areas that impacts users in the area. I'm just a couple, and also the turning lane thing, perfect. There's mention in the report of this, so this surface, is it raised? Is that the idea? It's a different color, and is it also a different texture?
Through you, Your Worship, there are a number of options that can be incorporated into the surface. At this point in the design, it's not anticipated that we don't anticipate that it would be raised. And there's the potential in the short term for it to be different treatment on Brock Street as opposed to Bagot Street, recognizing that Brock Street, that section would be fully reconstructed and would likely be replaced with a colored concrete. The construction of Bagot Street, we have concrete sections where the buses dwell currently that could be resurfaced and refurbished over a longer period of time and would likely be finished with a paint or other surface.
Thank you. And then I don't have my report in front of me, so I can't see it, but there was one other thing in there that suggested there was something underground that was a component of the EA. Could you just touch on what that is?
Certainly, through Your Worship. The section of Brock Street, Brock Street itself in this area has not been reconstructed. So as we are going into, the work requires certainly the reconstruction of the existing bus travel lane and the sidewalk areas along Brock Street from Bagot to Montreal Street. When we do work of that nature, the practice is to also replace the underground infrastructure at that time. So anything related to the stormwater and the sanitary or other utilities that would be underneath that those components are factored into the into the price the cost that is shown as part of this work, and would be further refined in the future.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, just when you looked at this conceptual design, did you consider intersection improvements to Montreal and Brock as well, as that's been an intersection that I believe this council's looked at several times before in various ways? Would there be an integrated approach to making improvements we're hoping for more pedestrian traffic as we increase ridership, so we would probably see an increase there, and was that considered during this process, and would it be considered in a more detailed design phase?
Through your worship, yes. So that the pedestrian crossing at Brock Street and Montreal Street was a factor that was assessed both from a pedestrian safety, traffic safety, and overall design piece as part of this work. There are recommendations in the report specific to that intersection that speak to some of the measures that are in place there and other measures that could be considered at a detailed design, and that also recommend that more detailed design of that intersection and upstream from that intersection be anticipated, and that those changes reflect that the transfer point is going to remain in that location.
Okay, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think one thing that the public might be interested in is whether you've looked at and I'm sure you have, so I'm looking for the answer, the connectivity between the west side of Bagot and going north on Brock and the east side, because that will be a significant difference. People will have to cross the road to connect to those buses. And whether you've taken that into account in your scheduling and public safety and so on.
Through your worship, yes. So that is a factor that was looked at as part of this design, and in looking at what the preferred option would be. Part of how the transit system is evolving is the system now operates in a bit of a hybrid version, but there are a lot of buses that meet there at the same time, and then people transfer between those routes, and they try and transfer very quickly. The system is evolving away from that model, such that buses are arriving more frequently, certainly to the downtown transfer point, that rush and that feeling of worry in making your transfer it should diminish over time, but recognizing that there would still be a crossing involved, we look at the way that the buses can be grouped within the downtown transfer point. So there are a number of bus bays that you can see reflected on this drawing, but the groupings of the buses are designed to incorporate the most likely transfer between the routes. So the goal is to minimize the number of crossings that one would need to make across those intersections.
Thank you. When this is up and running, could you compare the number of buses that would be there at any one time with what we can expect in the future?
So the way in which speaking through your worship, the way that the system is evolving based on how it operates now, the number of buses expected at this location along the Brock Street component likely would not increase in the short term. There may be additional buses along the Bagot Street segments. So we anticipate that through sort of the reconfiguration of the lower Robert Bruce garage, we can incorporate more buses along that Bagot Street component. The intention is that the buses are arriving more frequently. So the number of buses, certainly in the short term, may not increase, but the frequency in which the buses are there and in those bays would increase.
And once this is completed, how long do you think this will be a good solution for before we have to look at it again? And I don't mean a transit plan. I mean when you might have to change the physical infrastructure again. Do you have any projection on that?
Through your worship, I don't have a projection on the lifespan of the hard features. Typical shelter lifespan is between 15 and 20 years, according to our shelter manufacturer. Certainly from a site capacity standpoint for the buses, it builds in the expectation that there would be articulated buses potentially in the future, and looks at the 20-year horizon of what was considered in the planning of the system.
Thank you, and I'll just thank you for the improvements at the Bruce there, especially the shelter and the benches. I know seniors will much appreciate that, as I think you well know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neal.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for the report as well. I think it's very sensible and very positive, the changes that are being suggested. Just a quick question, two actually. The bus shelters still being almost at curbside. Has there been, other than at the Bruce parking lot, has there been a consideration for moving them back and allowing for a wider staging area for people, pedestrians and that, to gain access to the buses? Or is there a compelling reason to keep them close to street side?
Through your worship, there's two parts to that. One is the Brock Street section and one is the Bagot Street section. So the shelter placement on Brock Street presently is very close to the curb of the road, and doesn't meet our accessibility requirements for the spacing of being able to deploy the ramp of the bus and for people to be able to move around the doorway of the bus. So there's a plan view or a right-of-way view that I've shown up here, where you can see the shelter or furniture zone that's referred to is moved back from the curb. And we look at creating at least a 1.83 meter sidewalk zone that would be to the rear of that. The shelters contemplated for the site as well are a narrower profile. So they are similar to some of the express style shelters that we're using at more restrictive sites where we don't have as much public space to install. So the overall space for the riders getting on and getting off the bus along this segment will be much improved over what it is now, and meets the requirements of what we build at our bus stops now to allow for that mobility. Along Bagot Street, it is more constrained along Bagot Street, and there are two options that were looked at for that. In both cases, the furniture zone is moved to the wall, and there's longer term options that look at the expansion of the Bagot Street sidewalk, but in the short term, the existing sidewalk meets the accessibility requirements that were put forward.
My final question is, given the technology that we have today with GPS and so many software programs coming on in other cities that allow people to see the ETA of buses along a route, is there a consideration or a possibility that we can have digital signage here that in fact will inform people of what the next ETA is, so I won't have to jump on the number 4 and then watch the 502 scoot by me while I'm waiting? So.
Through your worship, short answer, yes, that is anticipated that there would be some measure of real-time arrival, both system and signage, certainly at this site in the future. The shelters that we installed or have installed as part of our Express program are pre-fit with wiring harnesses that allow for both data and power in the future, and we would design accordingly.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Councillor Sanik.
Thank you. Mr. Semple, is improved street lighting going to be part of the detailed design plan, for the transfer point? I just wondered if that was one of the Post-it notes you received, for the customer survey, how to improve the passenger experience.
Through your worship. Yes, so we heard from our riders and from stakeholders alike a desire for more appropriate lighting through there, both within the shelters, but then along the streetscape itself. So through the detailed design, the actual placement of where the existing streetlights are on Brock Street certainly would be reviewed to ensure they're lined up within the furniture zone rather than the passenger zone. And then we would, as I mentioned, we would also look at ways in which lighting can be incorporated either into the shelter or provided in a more appropriate fashion for how the transfer point is used.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much. So item 1B is completion of the municipal class environmental assessment for the Kingston Transit Downtown Transfer Point. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 10 from Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. It's my pleasure to present report number 10 from the Planning Committee for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Shell, second by Councillor Neal, that report number 10 from the Planning Committee be received and adopted.
So we will separate item number 1 as Councillor George has a conflict. Are there any other items that we want to separate? Okay, seeing none, we will first take the vote on item number 1. If Councillor George wants to step away, that's approval of an application for zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision 3566 Princess Street. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Now we'll do the balance of the items. Item 2 is approval of an application for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, 621 and 623 King Street West. Item 3 is approval and application for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, 2400 Highway 38 and 3175 Unity Road. Item 4 is approval of an application for zoning bylaw amendment, 1233 Midland Avenue. And item 5 is approval of an application for zoning bylaw amendment, 607 and 645 Gardner's Road. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 11 from the Municipal Heritage Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I rise now to present report number 11 from the Municipal Heritage Committee and ask that Council receive and adopt it. Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Stroud, second by Councillor Shell, that report number 11 from the Municipal Heritage Committee be received and adopted.
So there are 6 items. Seeing no separations, we will vote on them as a whole. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 12 from the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to present report number 16? 12, yes, from the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bohm. Thank you. Okay.
Moved by Councillor Hutchison, second by Councillor Bohm, that report number 12 from the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee be received and adopted.
There are 3 items. Item 1 is approval of general operating funding model for child care service providers. Item 2 is the Civic Collections Working Group report. And item 3 is housing implications regarding the City of Kingston workforce and in-migration strategy recommendations. We'll vote on them as a whole. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 13 from the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee.
I wish to submit report number 13 from Municipal Accessibilities Advisory Committee for acceptance and adoption. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Neal, second by Councillor Holland, that report number 13 from the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee be received and adopted.
So there's just the one clause, revised integrated accessibility standards policy. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 14 from Committee of the Whole. Councillor Sanik.
Thank
Yes.
you, Your Worship. Okay, I am happy to present report number 14 from Committee of the Whole and ask that it be received and adopted.
Moved by Councillor Osanek, second by Councillor George, that report number 14 from the Committee of the Whole be received and adopted.
Okay, so the report is broken down into 3 items. Item number 1 is, so we'll deal with them separately. So item number 1 is approval of the 2016 operating and capital budgets for the municipal utilities. So Councillor Boehm has stepped away. We will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Item number 2 is approval of rate changes for 2016 for miscellaneous charges and the appliance rental business. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Item number 3 is approval of municipal operating and capital budgets. So, Mr. Clerk, can I see your phone? Okay, so just to deal with the conflicts that Councillor Hutchison has, what we will first do is do a vote on paragraph number 2. So paragraph number 2 is the clause for which Councillor Hutchison will step away. So we will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Are there any other separations on any of the remaining paragraphs? So it's just, so number 8 we will separate again because both Councillor Boehm and Councillor Hutchison have conflict. So what we will do is we will take a vote on every paragraph except for number 8. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, now on paragraph 8. So Councillor Hutchison and Councillor Boehm can step away. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, on to report number 15, received from the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee. Who has report 15?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to present the next clause from the report number 15 from the Arts, Recreation, Community Policies Committee, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Boehm.
Moved by Councillor Hutchison, second by Councillor Boehm, that report number 15 from the Arts, Recreation, and Community Policies Committee be received and adopted.
Okay, so there's just the one clause, appointment of Museums and Collections Committee member to Heritage Kingston Transition Team. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Report number 16 from the Administrative Policies Committee.
It is my pleasure to present report number 16, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Holland for the Administrative Policies Committee, and ask that it be received and adopted. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Boehm, second by Councillor Holland, that report number 16 from the Administrative Policies Committee be received and adopted.
So again, just the one clause, Provincial Offences Act, adoption of write-off policy for uncollectible defaulted POA fines. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Nothing else from Committee of the Whole. We do have a number of information reports. If there are any questions, just raise your hand. Number 1, tender and contract awards subject to the established criteria for delegation of authority for the month of October 2015. Number 2, heritage delegated authority approvals. Number 3, 2015 status update, Canadian Coalition of Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination. Item 4, Bell Park Working Group update, interim report. Councillor Rosanek.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have just a few questions to ask about the Bell Park Working Group report, and it's great that the working group's been meeting once a month. With the survey that's going to be created to past members, will the working group still be meeting once a month throughout the winter? And the idea is to have the survey results back during the winter so they can use those results of the survey to come up with new ideas for the 2016 season.
Yes, Mr. Folwell.
Through you, Your Worship. So the term of the current working group ended November 30th, so we've just been appointed new members, and our first meeting will take place in January with those new members. And the first item on that list will discuss the survey questions and the duration that we want to put out to our current members and most likely out to the general public as well. And we would report back certainly in time before the golf season starts in 2016.
Great, thank you. And one of the new initiatives in 2015 was Hack Golf, and I just wondered, how was that received? Like, did it look to be a success and something that might be tried next year as well?
Through you, Your Worship. It was a success for some, but some of our members didn't think it was all that great for their golf game, so something that we'll review and a question we'll probably have in the survey and continue to promote it if it's a result of the survey as some opportunity. We did have some new daily green fee users that were there just for the Hack Golf, but it's something we'll have to review. Currently, the plan is to continue with Hack Golf next year unless results of the survey say otherwise.
Thank you. And where it says in the report that some areas on the course might be naturalized to, reduce the mowing that's required and whatnot, will that be monitored for wild parsnip? And I only say that because it's our least favorite weed in the entire city. And we were having reports this summer that Bell Island had a lot of wild parsnip. So I like the idea of naturalizing some parts, but wild parsnip can really invade, and so I just wondered if that would be closely monitored by Public Works, and if they see any start to develop on the course, like we'll just go right back to cutting it down.
For the maintenance on the golf course, certainly our team will look after any wild parsnip that will come up, and we'll continue to work with Public Works, who maintains and addresses the concerns on Bell Island from a wild parsnip perspective.
Great, thanks for the answer.
Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question as well, Mr. Folwell. I don't see it in the report, but I'm wondering if it's contained in one of the items. I know that in the past there's been a tree planting project there with the in various areas, and is that considered part of the greens and maintenance of the golf course, or is it of the park in general, or is it separated, and is there any plans for further planting at this time?
Through you, Your Worship, we continue to work with our environmental team. And they remind us of this, that it's a landfill first and a golf course second. They are reviewing some infill opportunities where we have some drainage challenges, and part of that plan will be to add additional trees once they've done the work on the course. So we'll continue to monitor it and add not just the hybrid poplars, but some other natural trees that would help assist with some of the leachate challenges we have on site.
That's great, because I know that's another sort of sometimes a hidden high point of this course, is that cleansing quality that the trees provide. Would that normally be in this type of working report, or would it come back in a different report?
Through your worship, in regards to the additional tree planting component, Mr. Councillor, it's something that we have talked about at our meetings. There wasn't action through this current or the former working group, but it is something that as part of the environmental initiative that they'll be leading in 2016 that we would bring back to the working group for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Information Report 5, Public Sector and MPP Accountability and Transparency Act 2014. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, just really quickly, not that I'm suggesting we do this, but I noticed that that a municipality that has its own accountability framework or integrity commissioner type thing has to go through that process first before enacting this process. Does this legislation preclude a municipality from adopting its own framework or accountability commissioner in the future now that this is in place?
Ms. Nicholson?
Through you, Your Worship, no, it does not. The municipality can have its own process, and that's not precluded at all.
Great, and thank you. And I just want to make it clear, I think we made it pretty clear at the beginning of our term about that we don't need this so far. So I'll stick with that plan. Just wanted to know what our options were. Thanks.
Thank you. We have no information reports from members of council. Miscellaneous business. Number 1, that the resignation from Councillor Jim Neal from the Board of Directors for Kingston Access Services be accepted with regret, and that Councillor Blank be appointed to the Board of Directors for Kingston Access Services for a term ending November 30th, 2018. Who is Councillor Blank? Councillor Holland has a question.
Yeah. This is a question. Yes. When does the Board of Directors for Access Services meet?
Councillor Schell.
It meets the third Wednesday of every month at 5:15, dinner provided, homemade dessert provided. Usually lasts about an hour and a half, and it's a very good group.
That's quite a sales pitch, Councillor Schell. Thank you. Councillor Neal?
Just for further information, their meetings are on Dalton Avenue, which is my difficulty because I'm now car-free. So there may be transportation issues for some.
Okay, can I have a volunteer, please? Everyone's avoiding eye contact. Okay, I'll ask again. Can I have a volunteer, please? Bill Hutchins. Thank you, Bill. Can I have a volunteer from a member of council, please? Mr. Clerk, can I see you for a moment? Okay, so the clerk has informed me that we can go no further until we have a volunteer. So we're just going to stare at each other awkwardly until somebody caves in and puts their name forward. Okay, so, okay, Mr. Clerk, can I see you for a moment? Okay, so first we actually need to put it on the floor. So can I have someone to move this recommendation without a name attached? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stroud, seconded by Councillor Allen. So now the motion is on the floor. Now a motion to defer from Councillor Neal to the January 12th meeting in order to allow for heavy lobbying over the next month. Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Osanek. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Number 2, whereas there are fewer applications from members of council than vacancies for the following committee, therefore be it resolved that council select the member of council to be appointed to serve on the following committee. Arts Advisory Committee, 2 councillors are required. We have Councillor Neal. Is there a second volunteer, please? And just to note that Councillor Neal is not currently a member of ARC, and so the other member must be from ARC, so that would be Councillor Bohm, Councillor Candon, Councillor Holland, Councillor Hutchison, Councillor McLaren, or Councillor Osanek. Do I have a volunteer?
Again, some information, if I might. They meet on Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock. It's a very large committee, and they've met at that time for years. So that may be an issue if you're not one of the leisure class like I am.
Councillor Candon. Thank you very much. Okay.
It was the mornings that did it. I got to see my wife every now and then. I'm away a lot.
Understood. Understood. Okay, so can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Bohm. So we will be adding Councillor Neal and Councillor Candon to the Arts Advisory Committee. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, on to new motions. Number 1, moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Candon. Whereas the city provides substantial funding to a variety of outside agencies and boards, and whereas the City of Kingston is committed to open and transparent government, therefore be it resolved that the city requests that any board or agency which receives 50% or more of their operating budget from the City of Kingston, and therefore city taxpayers, publicly disclose those who receive remuneration above the Sunshine Law threshold in the same manner as the City of Kingston, and that this direction be shared with all boards and agencies now and again prior to annual budget deliberations. Councillor Neal.
Thank you. I'm not going to take a long time to talk about this because I think we've all spoken at length about the need for greater transparency, the need for open government. This motion is worded in this way with the assistance of senior staff because we aren't all governed by the Municipal Act, and therefore groups that are under the Corporations Act or the Library Act or other acts don't necessarily have to report on the Sunshine List. But I think part of what we learned from some of the discussion around KEDCO and the review that's going on is that there's an expectation from the community that if a large portion or a large proportion of the municipal taxpayers' money goes to an agency, it would make sense for them to report under the same criteria. That's why we're saying requests, and which replaced my word shall, because I was told that, and I think the fancy word for that was that it was ultra-virus. It was beyond our actual ability to say thou shalt. So we're requesting that groups that receive a greater proportion, in fact, abide by this. I will say the Sunshine Law came into effect, I believe, 14 years ago, and it's never been amended, which is problematic because we're getting more and more people that pass through that threshold. And I think it's incumbent on the province to adjust that from the $100,000 to maybe 125 and indexed or something like that. But they haven't seen fit to do that. So I think this motion addresses it. KEDCO got out in front of this, thankfully, and announced when they came that they would, in fact, be doing this. They aren't compelled to do this because they're governed by the Corporations Act, I believe. But they willingly and thankfully got out in front of this. And all that this motion is attempting to do is to get other organizations that receive the lion's share of their funding from the city to similarly divulge those names of anybody in their employ that receives over 100,000. So that being said, I'm hopeful that this will pass. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Number 2, moved by Councillor McLaren, seconded by Councillor Bohm, whereas the 2011 National Household Survey confirmed that 14.9% of the population live in low-income circumstances, percentage exceeded in the City of Kingston, where the percentage of the population living in poverty has been documented at 15.4%, whereas income insecurity and inequality continue to increase as the result of precarious employment, whereas existing income security programs have not proved sufficient to ensure adequate, secure income for all, whereas insufficient income security, and inequality have well-established strong relationships to a range of adverse public health outcomes and are root causes of many social ills such as illiteracy and shortfall of educational attainment, chronic stress, alienation, and criminal activity, all of which undermine the social fabric, whereas a basic income guarantee would reduce income insufficiency, insecurity, and inequality and ensure everyone an income sufficient to meet basic needs and live in dignity regardless of work status, whereas a basic income guarantee would provide an income floor for those doing socially essential but unpaid work, supporting the choices of those who engage in it, whereas a basic income guarantee would provide additional direct personal income which would be spent locally, thereby revitalizing local economies, whereas a basic income guarantee would enable individuals to pursue educational, occupational, social, and wellness opportunities relevant to them and their families, whereas a basic income guarantee would support entrepreneurship and job transition for those trying to establish a new productive role for themselves in response to a persistently changing economy, whereas a basic income guarantee would resemble income guarantees already provided in Canada for seniors and children, guarantees which have contributed to health and quality of life improvements in those age groups, and whereas basic income guarantee has been studied in Canada for approximately 40 years and has demonstrated improved physical and mental health and educational outcomes, and whereas a basic income guarantee program would involve the redistribution of the administrative functions of existing income support programs to the nation as a whole and to senior government partners in the same manner as Medicare and the existing seniors and children's programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Kingston endorse a national discussion of a basic income guarantee for all Canadians, that the City of Kingston encourage the provincial and federal governments through their respective responsible ministers, including the Ontario Minister of Health and the Ontario Deputy Minister in charge of poverty reduction, to work together to consider, investigate, and develop basic income guarantee for all Canadians, that this resolution be forwarded to all municipalities in Ontario with the request that they consider indicating their support for this most important initiative, and then that this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, including the Big City Mayor's Caucus, with the request that they include proposing a basic income guarantee in their respective engagements with the provincial and federal governments, and that copies of this resolution be shared with the Premier of Ontario, the Prime Minister of Canada, and all opposition leaders at both levels of government. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you. And to start off, this is the time to push for big. Nobel laureates such as Joseph Stiglitz, Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, James Tobin, James Buchanan, James Meade, Paul Krugman, Herbert A. Simon, Robert Solow have all supported a form of the basic income guarantee. They may have called it by different names, like a basic minimum income or a negative income tax, but this is something that has been pushed for by Nobel laureates in the Memorial Prize of Economics for a very long time. These are the best minds that our civilization has produced in economics. They represent both the left and the right. Both of these sides, and everyone supports big because it is good for the economy and for people. By putting more money in the hands of the people, we create demand for goods and services that support the needs of the people. This is a rebalancing of the economy in favor of people and away from industries that do not produce value for people. A basic income guarantee would diminish the artificially created competitive environment of the job market and free us to work at whatever enterprise is fulfilling and self-actualizing. Remember that there might be a limited number of jobs, but there really is an unlimited amount of work to be done, and that distinction is critical here. Work that has been done to keep our civilization going and has not been remunerated, there's a certain injustice in that if you believe that justice has anything to do with getting what you deserve and earning what you worked for. There are plenty of values and human motivations beyond the mere accumulation of money. Values such as altruism, public spirit, charity, honor, glory, self-actualization, self-transcendence, etc. When we fulfill people's basic needs, when we free them from wage slavery or wage peonage, the people are free to pursue other values that benefit society in an upward and virtuous cycle. Canada's GDP today is about $1.98 trillion. That's trillion with 12 zeros. Our population is only 35 million. That's only 6 zeros. If we were to divide these two numbers, we get an average of about $55,000. If we were just to take a third of that for a basic income guarantee, we would still have 2/3, over $1 trillion to motivate those who compete for monetary accumulation. In closing, the solution to homelessness is housing, and a basic income guarantee helps with that. The solution to hunger and starvation is food, and a basic income guarantee helps with that. The solution to poverty is a basic income guarantee. So I encourage you all to please vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one small amendment I would like to propose. It's for the 10th whereas clause, and I have it written now. Essentially, okay, so basic income guarantee would resemble income guarantees already provided in Canada for seniors and children. There is no such guarantee for children provided in Canada. There are several child benefits, although children don't have income, for example. So I would just argue that that is not an appropriate group for the rationale of this motion, and would like to strike children from that whereas clause.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend put forward by Councillor Holland to delete the words "and children" in the 10th whereas clause. Is there a seconder? Moved by Councillor Neal. Okay, any discussion on the motion to amend? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Councillor Holland, you still have the floor?
On the main motion? Sir?
On the main motion, or the motion now as amended?
Sure. Okay, so for the motion as amended, I'm very grateful to see this come forward. I think the delegations this evening gave us a really good indication of the momentum behind this and some of the rationale, the bigger picture. The fact that the job market has changed, the economy has changed, it's a more precarious employment situation now. So we see job retention numbers, what is actually required to remain in a job is not supported in the conditions that people are living in poverty. So for example, if someone is suffering from a mental health or physical disability, it's very difficult to enter into a job and stay in a job if the job does not offer sick leave or benefits, for example. So most of my comments have to do with the practical side of this proposal as opposed to the fairness side, which I fully support. But I think it's important to acknowledge some of the counter arguments, most of which have to do with whether or not this would negatively impact individuals in their desire to work. I first came across this idea as a graduate student, and studying it's a very interesting idea. And then after many years of talking to people who are actually living in poverty and struggling to find work and struggling to get by on very low incomes, what I've learned is that most people do want to work. They want to improve their circumstances. Many can't work due to physical, mental health issues, need to care for a family member, or just a general inability to conform to the standards of the labor force that we see now. So it's very difficult for anyone to get out of that situation. If you can't afford to retrain, the cycle continues. We have intergenerational poverty. And then just on the employer side, there are a lot of practical considerations. It's more difficult to get and maintain a job for someone who, as I said, may have an issue going to their job every single day. So anything that impacts that, for example, if you don't want to get out of bed and go to work, it's not a matter of any issue that a person is facing in their motivation. It's just, in many cases, there are people who just simply cannot get up and go to work. So their ability to change their circumstances or to do anything other than live in poverty it just doesn't exist. So we see this cycle continue year after year and generation after generation. Other issues that would be addressed by something like a basic income guarantee are the fact that, as I think one of the delegation members was speaking to, that the current social assistance and social welfare programs that we have create disincentives to work. Money is clawed back once you start to work when you're on OW or ODSP, which is problematic. Another issue is the fact that you can't have assets if you're a recipient of one of these forms of social assistance. So again, people suffer this inability to move forward in their lives and for their children to move forward. And I guess finally, I would just say another practical consideration is that these programs were put in place many years ago when the welfare state came into being and have changed over time, and they've changed often due to the political climate or the political whims. And something like a basic income guarantee would ensure that there was security, income security, a very basic level for people that would exist over time, similar to something like old age security, which has not changed dramatically. Once that program was introduced, people saw the value in it. And so seniors don't have to worry every election cycle whether or not they're going to be able to have that income to rely on. So in general, great idea. I think it's an idea that's catching fire, and I think it would be wonderful if we were a part of offering our support to this. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I have a quick question for staff and for you, Councillor McLaren. Has anyone read this over in terms of the staff, and have they approved this, or did you get any help in writing this?
So, Councillor McLaren, I'll let you answer that question.
So the start for writing this happened about a year ago. It went through about 6 different iterations, and eventually we decided to redraft it all based on the alpha motion that was passed by the by the public health body that passed it at their recent conference. So it's based on their text.
A follow-up to that is, did you pass it through staff?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I first really heard about this through Senator Segal of Kingston, who has been advocating for this for years. One of the interesting things in Canada is that many people who live in poverty are no longer impoverished when they reach 65, because we have guaranteed income for people that very often they simply didn't have before. So one of the reasons we can have our affordable housing for seniors in Kingston is that they can afford to pay 80% of the rent. They don't require the RGI rent of 30% of their income. They can actually pay almost full rent because after 65, you actually have enough money. So that was another practical thing I had thought of with this. I mean, I had agreed with Senator Siegel quite a long time ago, but we have a 30% ceiling on people's rent if they're under RGI. So some people pay a very tiny rent to Frontenac Housing, and the government now has to make up the difference, federally or provincially, some municipally, and that would change dramatically our affordable housing if people had a guaranteed income that could allow them to pay quite a lot more for their rent. That's just one example to me of how money would get shifted in different directions. And I think that's one of the things that has to be fleshed out over time, is exactly how these changes would occur, because you wouldn't need a huge social services department in the city of Kingston. It would change many people's job description dramatically. And it would be a big difference, but I do think in the long run, it really is an important initiative that would make a great difference to us as a city financially and to people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I think something that Councillor McLaren said earlier, which really resonated, was there's definitely support for this on the political right and the political left, and I think part of that is the realization that we have a patchwork of systems that lack synergy and leave gaps and holes there. So ultimately, it's almost like this idea has been around for a while, but there hasn't been a review of the system that's currently in place, and that system sort of leaves some people out in the cold and kind of catches others. And this is more, I think, about a reimagining of the system that we have to bring that basic dignity to this, and realizing that it's very similar to our housing and homelessness strategy in a sense, that there's economic reasons, there's humanitarian reasons, there's social reasons. All these reasons exist, and the proof is out there. There's been studies done, there's been pilot projects that basically prove that this is viable, and it is actually a way to kind of plug the holes in those systems and reimagine a system. We've been using the current system for quite a while, and it's essentially, I don't think there's too many people that won't admit that it's quite broken, and there's definitely better ways that we can do it. So this is something that I support basically, and former Senator Hugh Siegel and I have actually spoken about this, and this is something where ultimately it's about bringing back that basic human dignity and providing that baseline so that when somebody falls down, there's a hand to help them back up. So I'll happily be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Deputy Mayor Stroud.
Thank you, Your Worship. Essentially, I'd like to mostly echo Councillor Bowen's comments, maybe further refine just the simplicity of it, the patchwork of systems that he was referring to, and the cracks that are appear. It's because of a complexity of a system that is micromanaged and by the ministries and requires a huge number of bureaucrats and caseload workers to operate. You simplify that system. I mean, I think the time is right. The time is right politically because of the support on both sides of the spectrum, but also because of the advances in technology. It becomes very a simple system that has a floor guarantee is very easy to implement and will create all kinds of savings because of its simplicity. And I really think that it would be it's definitely a redistribution of the way we collect and distribute revenue, but it would not necessarily be anything that would come with any great cost. In fact, all of the savings in the administration could be passed directly on to the people that need it, which is the people below the poverty line, whether that's temporary or as an ongoing chronic thing because of their psychological makeup. This is a very good thing. As Councillor Schell pointed out, we have this basic income guarantee for seniors. It's been very successful. It's part of our fabric now. It's part of the Canadian fabric, and I think that we should all be thankful that we're bringing it forward at this time, and I will be supporting it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Neal.
Thank you. I'm also supporting this motion. We've talked for many years about a guaranteed annual income in some form or another, and I think there's actually some momentum at both upper tier levels of government currently that suggests that now may very well be the right time. I think the reason so many economists and so many people, very knowledgeable people, and absolutely right, people on the right and the left, support this, there's an expression among scientists that something is elegant. That means it's efficient and it's simple. And what we have now is neither efficient nor simple. People have to go from one food bank to another, from one food place to another, because in many cases 60% or 70% of their income has to go towards rent. And so all this motion is seeking to do is to ask the upper tier governments to work collaboratively, which is part of the new federal government's pledge, in order to do this. And there's all kinds of external benefits to this. Our healthcare costs have a lot to do with poverty. Our stressed education costs have a lot to do with poverty and children going to school hungry. And if all we do is provide Band-Aids to the symptoms, but we don't get at the root cause of so many of the things that cost society so much, which is systemic poverty, then we're going to continue to have these discussions, and we'll be downloading and uploading continually and never getting ahead of the problem. So I support this initiative, and I sincerely hope the federal government and provincial governments can find a way to make it so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor George.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to beat Councillor Neal to the punch and ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. For old time's sake, we'll do a recorded vote. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, do you remember how to do this?
Councillor George?
Yes.
Councillor Holland?
Yes.
Councillor Hutchison?
Yes.
Councillor McLaren?
Yes.
Councillor Neal?
Yes.
Councillor Osanek? Oh, my apologies. Mayor Patterson?
Yes.
Councillor Schell? Deputy Mayor Stroud?
Yes.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Brome?
Yes.
Councillor Camden?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, are there any
And
notices?
Mr. Neal will also say, can we show that's a unanimous vote?
Let the record show that was a unanimous vote. Are there any notices of motion tonight? Okay, seeing none, minutes. Mr. Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Schell, second by Councillor Holland, that the minutes of City Council meeting number 2016-01 held Tuesday, December 1st, 2015 be confirmed.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We have some tabling of documents. We have a number of communications. Is there any other business? Just a quick note, since this is our last meeting before Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and a reminder that our New Year's levy this year will be a little bit different. We're very happy to have the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario who's going to be joining us. And so instead of doing our usual New Year's levy here in Memorial Hall, we're going to be up at the Grand Theatre. We'll have a special theater performance at 2 o'clock, and then we'll have a reception from 3 to 5 with, I know, hopefully many of councillors and myself will be there, our MPP, our MP, and Lieutenant Governor as well. So encourage Kingstonians to join us. With that, Mr. Clerk, ask for bylaws.
We're going to deal with the bylaws first that relate to Councillor Boehm's pecuniary interests. All right, so moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 15 be given its first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that clause 11-34, bylaw number 2010-1 be suspended for the purpose of giving bylaw 15 three readings.
All those in favor? Opposed?
That
carries.
bylaw, Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 15 be given its third reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries.
So we'll now deal with Councillor Hutchison stepping out as well as Councillor Boehm. And it's moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 16 be given its first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that clause 11-34, bylaw number 2010-1 be suspended for the purpose of giving bylaw 16 three readings.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries.
Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 16 be given its third reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Now I'll ask Councillor George to step aside for bylaw number 8, and Councillor Hutchison and Councillor Boehm can return. Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 8 be given its first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries.
Moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaw 8 be given its third reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries.
All right. So moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaws 1 through 7 and 9 through 14 and 17 through 22, as well as 24 and 25 be given their first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That
Moved by
carries.
Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that clause 11-34, bylaw number 2010-1 be suspended for the purpose of giving bylaw 7, 17, and 25 three readings.
All those in favor? Opposed?
And
That's carried.
Finally, moved by Councillor Holland, second by Councillor Turner, that bylaws bylaws 7 and 9 through 14, as well as bylaws 17 and 21 through 25 be given their third reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Boehm, seconded by Councillor Turner. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much.